This land will never be in vain. Never. No. We don't want to see no more people dying. Zion Yahweh. Whoa. Zion Yahweh. Whoa. Zion Yahweh. Whoa. Zion Yahweh. Yo, listen, man. My name is Ja, beloved. You can call me Quincy back when the occasion calls for it. You are watching iCulture TV. Keep it locked. iCulture TV. Africa from African perspective. All right, greetings and welcome to this day's discussion. Today, we are visiting the subject of reparations, and reparative justice. Today's discourse will be moderated by Dr. Kojo Opon-Wadie, and my name is Kwesi Eson Baku. You may call me Jah Beloved, and I am also going to be assisting in the back. But Dr. Kojo Opon-Wadie will be today's moderator. Just a few house rules before we start. Today's discussion is designed to be respectful, especially to ourselves as Black people. Today's discussion is not designed to be a we versus them discussion. It's designed and meant to be a discussion that is supposed to scratch beyond the surface to unearth that deep-seated discussion that must be had among us as Black people, home and abroad. Let me take this opportunity to welcome to you today's discussion, our moderator, Dr. Kojo Opon-Wadie, after whose initial remarks we will introduce the rest of the team. As has been indicated in the advertisement, this is a public forum and everybody is welcome to chime in using the link provided. Please keep it decorous. Thank you very much. And let's welcome Dr. Kojo Opon-Wadie. Doc, welcome.
Empire, thanks. Hobby. Cool. So I did at the program, so it's a little bit loud here right now, but I'm gonna try to do my best to push through. I have something I want to start with in terms of a presentation, if I could,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Doc, is it okay then to introduce the other
yes
members, just so they're not in the back for too long and then have the discussion? All right. Currently, I have 7 Fireside also joining the discussion. 7, if you can please activate your camera so we can add you to the discussion. And I have Dr. Sadia Nuhu also ready to join the discussion. Dr. Sadia, if you can please activate your camera so we can add you to the discussion. Thank you very much. And I have 7 Fireside. Dr. Sadia, we're waiting for you. Yes, there is Dr. Sadia also. Okay, so floor is open, Doc. You're in charge. Please take it away.
I'm trying to share my screen right now. Somehow it's not showing up over here. I wonder why. Let's see.
Is there a way of sending? Is it an image?
No, it's a slideshow.
Oh, is there a way of sending it to me so I can play it from the studio?
Here, let me. Okay, I can do that, but let me try one more time. If you can start with the other item, I will jump in as soon as I saw.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's welcome Empress Sadia and 7 Fireside. Empress, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Last Place. Thank you very much.
All right, and 7 Fireside. Always happy.
Yes, Nana. Yes, Nana. Same here.
Nana, yes, initial remarks. Yeah. We will, and as far as I'm concerned. But again, as much as possible, I don't know if it's a good idea to keep it in English, just to keep the discourse more open to a wider audience.
All right.
Okay, Doc, are you ready for us now?
No, somehow it's only showing the web links, and it says Chrome tab, window, and an entire screen, and none of them seems to be showing the slideshow. So I'm not sure what is going on.
Okay, so while you're doing that, how about we start with, because we have a couple videos to play also. So while you're trying to get that sorted out, as soon as you have that sorted out, we will reconnect you to start. But before that, let's watch a few videos, which I think will inform the discussion. Let's start with former president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo's proposal to the United Nations. Now, what happened? Let's say this. Ghanaian President John Mahama has, brought the issue of reparations to the United Nations, but he is not by any means the first president to do so. Let's put that on record. As a matter of fact, former President Akufo-Addo had done so. And I think that what he said and how he presented it is instructional. Let's hear how he presented the case to the United Nations. I'm talking about former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Let's watch.
Are not the ones that engage in the slave trade, but that grand inhuman enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated, that millions of productive Africans were snatched from the embrace of our continent and put to work in the Americas and the Caribbean without compensation for their labor. If there are any hesitations in some minds about the paying of reparations, it is worth considering the fact that when slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of the slaves because the human beings were labeled as property, deemed to be commodities. Surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore. The African Union has authorized Ghana to hold a global conference on the issue in November in Accra. It is probably also the time to return to that vexed subject of illicit financial outflows out of the continent of Africa. I refer to the report of the panel chaired by the highly respected former South African President Thabo Mbeki on the illicit flow of funds from Africa, which states that Africa is losing annually more than 88 billion United States dollars through illicit financial outflows. Yes, those monies too must be returned to the continent. It is difficult to understand why the recipient countries are comfortable about retaining such funds and are happy to call those countries from whom the monies are taken as corrupt.
Okay. Doc.
Yeah, I've sent you the slideshow, so see if you can pull it up for me.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go off camera. Please take charge, and I'll see if I can load it while you have a little chit chat among yourself.
Yes, I give thanks. Greetings, Nana Ohini Kwesi Amachi and Sister Sadia. I hope you're all both doing well. Give thanks for your presence. Again, I'm so sorry. It's a little noisy here, but we're going to push through. It's going to be okay. So give thanks. So initial thoughts. I think there's a lot happening in the world right now. This week, we've seen some positive, let me put it that way, positive happenings in terms of the African world. Would you like to share any initial thoughts regarding these events that have taken place before we delve in? I want to start with Sister Sadia, ladies first, so take it away.
We're sharing our initial thoughts.
Yes, initial thoughts, yes.
Okay. Initial thoughts is that we thank God that at least the world or the United Nations have acknowledged that slavery was what was the word? It was the
gravest crime.
Gravest crime against humanity. So we thank God for the acknowledgement. I feel like it is an acknowledgement just for the conversation to start. I think that we have to start the conversation. There's the need to have this conversation so that we can recap history and so that we can see where we're going to compensate us for what we have suffered. what our forefathers suffered, what we have suffered, and what our children, you know, we want to prevent them from suffering. But then, there can be at least some respect for the Black race, right? Yes. And we were having a conversation this evening with a colleague that said it seems like the brain of the African is damaged. And I said, yes, it is very true. When you come to Ghana and you go to some rural areas, and even in the city, the amount of degradation, the filth, how we can't even think that we should pick up a broom and sweep. I went to a clinic where the bathroom of that clinic, it was a maternity clinic. The bathroom was filthy. It was black, like, oh, I didn't even want to keep a picture. Right? You can't look at it. They waited for the Nation of Islam. Some of their members came there and saw it, and they immediately renovated the bathroom, gave them some new towels. And I'm saying, why do you have to wait for somebody to come from outside and clean your house, right? So with those kind of things is what I'm saying, that it looks like the brain of the African might be damaged. And this damage came from the slavery. Years of indoctrination and eroding our sense of self. So I think the conversation needs to be had at home and abroad for us to even have a common ground, because it seems like even amongst Black people, we are divided. And we have to bridge the gap as we talk about Organization of African Unity. So we are on the right track. The conversation has opened, the acknowledgement has opened the door. So that's what I feel I have to contribute to this. Give thanks.
Give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. Let me throw the same question to brother.
In the meantime, Doc, please, before you do that, as you can see, we have the slideshow loaded. So when you're ready, you can start with it. And also, I saw Raskofi in the back. I'll add Raskofi as soon as he comes back. But the slideshow is loaded up for you, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you, Empire. So in terms of controlling the slideshow, do I give you a signal to move forward, or can I move forward?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So before we do that, initial thoughts, 7 Fireside, please.
Yes, honey, give thanks, Empress. Lovely. Beloved, give thanks for making this happen. And Raskofi is coming in, right?
Raskofi, please activate your camera so we can put you on.
Cool. So yeah, just two quick thoughts. It looks like we're back to the same place where we say slavery, the issue of slavery be some binding factor, right? So it's interesting to hear someone like a Kufuor where they speak with serious conviction, right? They say the thing's solid, like the energy, there's no question about it, right? It's like all forces that coalesce around the thing in a way where it'd be something for think about, say, what does it mean? So those were some of the initial thoughts where they hit me. And then one thing where I should say we're going to talk about would be the different ways we they understand reparation, reparative justice, and of course you go tie into repatriation as well. Okay, so those are my initial thoughts.
Give thanks. Repatriation and reparation go hand in hand. So give thanks for setting that and straight. Now, Empire, can you move the slideshow forward, please?
Okay.
I want to start with this excerpt from President Mahama's speech that he gave at the United Nations. Can you please play it? Why is it skipping? Go back.
I'm only seeing an image.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Then we'll have to come back to that because that means the next slide. Well, let me give a little background. So this is President Mahama giving his speech at the United Nations. He made some strong statements as well. He said that the need for this to happen at this time was to prevent erasure from occurring in history, and you can move it forward. So a response then came from the minority leader, who is Afenyo Makin, who sought to dismiss the efforts of President Mahama, saying that somebody brought a ship to the coast and you ran up and went to the Bono region and the north and went to capture people and brought them to the ship, and now you won't get paid for that, right? That's in a nutshell. Okay, moving forward, please. And then investigative journalist Manasseh Awini also came out and said something similar. And his question was, who sold the slaves? In other words, if the people on the motherland perpetrated this heinous crime, then why are there calls for reparative justice? So, and then there were also, as President Mahama was delivering his speech, he was actually at the burial grounds in New York, the African burial grounds, and there were a group of people protesting, saying that they do not want people from Ghana basically acting on their behalf. And these people, as you know, are known as FBA, or Foundational Black Americans, and then there's also a group known as ADOS. So they were also protesting. A few of them, very few in number, protesting. But by and large, this has been very welcome news throughout the African world. Very welcome news in the United States, in the African American community, and also in the Caribbean community. So, point here being that the naysayers are not going to be in the majority, and that they need to revisit history. And I want to take this opportunity to make a very fervent plea to the government of Ghana, because I've been informed that history is no longer a required subject in school. And I want to make this plea for that to be brought back as soon as possible, because it is showing in the kind of levels of ignorance that have been put forward by people of high standing in the society. So give thanks. Let's move forward, please. So I want to start by going back to what perpetrated this whole act, where one group of people decided to come into the African continent and enslave people and bring them to the Caribbean, the Americas, and scatter us all over the world. And this, we can find its beginnings in the papal bull known as Dum Diversus, which was issued by Pope Nicholas V exactly on 18 June 1452. In this papal bull, Nicholas V authorized King Alfonso V of Portugal to go throughout the world. This was what became known as the doctrine of discovery. But the authority came from the Pope, who gave it to Alfonso and said, go throughout the world and to reduce any Saracens. Saracens is another name for Muslims, and pagans, and any other unbelievers to perpetual slavery. So this is just a paraphrase. And the original document you can see in the back, but you can move forward, Emperor, please. So this is a fuller capture of the Dum Diversus papal bull of Pope Nicholas V, 18 June 1452. He said that King Alfonso and the people of Portugal should invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, the dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to appropriate to himself, that is, King Alfonso himself, to appropriate these people's properties, and his successors, the kingdoms, the dukedoms, the counties, the principalities, the dominions, and goods and to convert, I can't see the bottom, but he's basically saying that to convert them and to reduce them into slavery forever and to use whatever they have for profit. Now the question is, this is exactly what we've seen. We have seen the age of exploration. These powers, European powers, go into the world. They went to places where they considered home of the Saracens, which are the Muslims, the pagans, which are people like the Africans, which they consider to be enemies of Christ, and reduced our people to perpetual slavery. And also, they have appropriated for themselves our property, our land, our minerals, everything that is beholden unto us, and they have used that for profit. So this is the very root of the whole slavery enterprise that occurred. I want to pause for a minute and take some thoughts from the item before I proceed.
I think, Rasmiro, I would, very good information. And see, these teachings were championed, for lack of words, by Rastafari in Ghana, for instance, right? We, Rastafari, we've been talking about these things, we've been searching, we've been educating. And I think our voices need to come back into the mainstream. All efforts we can make, because it seems like, it's like it's not as we even started making these conversations. And this is the knowledge, deeper knowledge and deeper teaching. So yes, I appreciate this, and I feel like we should come out. Now we have social media, we have podcasts, we have YouTubes, and we have engagement with the schools and stuff like that. We should come out more, is what I'm trying to say.
Give thanks. Fireside, you have any comments?
Yes, no, just one thought where it hit me as you to go through the thing. It looks like there's a point where he's saying reduce them to perpetual slavery, right? That's like forever slavery, right? Yes. And it looks like the Muslims slipped the news. At least the Arab lands where they talk about this is not really perpetual. It's only the African way it won't be like some perpetual slavery, right? And it ties into what people go say what happened to like what they call, African slavery or racial slavery is the most extreme form of this, or actually it has become the emblem for this whole thing, And so I thought that was interesting, but maybe we can elaborate on the implications later.
True, very good point. And give thanks for sharing. Sister Sadia as well. Very good points raised. Empire, let's forward, please.
Okay, so before we forward, Empire, can I quickly play a short video relating to something you had said earlier, which I believe is going to inform the discussion going forward, please. Thank you.
May today mark a restoration of their dignity and their humanity. Amen. Amen.
That's good.
And it shows every day. We can tell when Yvette Clarke sits up there and fights for everybody but us. We can tell that you ain't our kinfolk. When you sit there and you see our people struggling and suffering, but you're sitting there giving $10 billion to people who have never paid 1 penny into this tax system. But you don't care. I see you laughing, and I hope the ancestors come up from the ground and tear your ass up. I am so sick of y'all. We are not the only people. We are sick of it. We are tired of you disrespecting our ancestors and disrespecting us now in the present. We are sick and tired of it. You are disrespectful. We told you we don't like what you're doing, and you continue to do it. Don't you feel uncomfortable? You flew your ass all the way over here to be disrespectful on top of somebody else's grave. Now imagine if I came to Ghana and I just pissed all over. How would you feel that? How would you feel about that? You wouldn't like it, but you feel the need to come over here and do what you're doing in the name of what? You are not our friends. You are not our family, because our friends and family will respect our ancestors' graves, but that's not what you're doing, is it? You're doing whatever the hell you want to do, and to us, be damned. And this is why we are tired of it. And this is why we delineate. This is why all you're doing is giving us fuel and letting us know what we must do. And the path that we are on is righteous. You are disrespectful, continuing on with the ceremony. How many of you are even foundational Black Americans that are over there? Probably none. But you are standing on our ancestors' bones. I'm telling you this again. You are standing on our ancestors' bones. And that's why Africa we are tired of it. You can sit there and just stand there on our ancestors' grave. That's our people, not your people.
That's very hard for me to watch, I have to admit. Doc, back to you, please.
All right, I think that we're going to progress. To be honest with you, we're going to address that, even though I don't feel like giving a lot of fuel to those kind of ignoramuses. And these people have been hired, right, to divide the Black community. We got to be aware of that, and we don't have to focus on them. The vast majority of the people in the United States, the African Americans, are very appreciative, and you're going to see as we continue our discussion of what has happened.
Sure.
Okay, so let's move on.
Sure. Skip to the next slide.
Yes, please. So unfortunately, this was a very important video, but since the video is not playing and I cannot share from my end, we are going to go ahead. So in terms of reparations, when we talk about reparations, what are they? Reparations are a program of acknowledgement, redress, and closure for a grievous injustice. So the word is, related to measures to bring about some form of redress, providing a range of material and symbolic remedies to victims or their families, as well as affected communities. Move ahead, please. So it is also acknowledgement of a harm that has been done. So as we can see, this is what the primary thing that is being called for in the Ghana's proposal to the United Nations, and unlawful conduct and to repair. I think the root word of reparations is repair, and we're gonna expand on that a little bit as well. And under international law, victims of crimes and human rights violations have a right to reparations. Okay, move ahead, please. Now, forms of reparation. There's first compensation, which is what a lot of people's minds go to when they hear reparations, and that is okay, but there are other forms. So compensation, where a state would give money to those affected as a way of compensating them for the damage that has been done. And then there's rehabilitation. And Sister Sadia started by saying that there has been some traumatic repercussions of our experience with this whole slaving enterprise. I prefer not to call it a slave trade, and there's a reason why I'm going to amplify that as we move on. So rehabilitation, and then there's restitution, which involves restoring victims to the position they would have been in had the harm not occurred. Again, there has been reference to this, the fact that today in the world, the word Black enslaved or African enslaved are synonymous, right? Which means that this whole enslavement enterprise reduced us to the position that still persists today. So restitution would require our glorious position in the earth also being, in the world, that is being restored. Move to the next one, please. Empire. You did it? Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Satisfaction is another, and includes effective measures aimed at the cessation of continuing violations, which means that we who are continuously facing violations as part of reparations should also have as a form of repair satisfaction, which will stop all measures that have been taken that um, continue to violate our human rights. And then there's guarantee of non-repetition, which includes measures aimed at preventing harm and human rights from being further violated by addressing the root causes. Next slide, please. So why do reparations matter? As we alluded to, people are still suffering the long-lasting effects of slavery and colonialism. The legacies of slavery and colonialism persist in present-day structures of racial discrimination, subordination, and inequality. In other words, what happened cannot be just relegated to the past and say, "Oh, that thing happened a long time ago, so why bother?" But the fact of the matter is, we are still suffering. Africans at home and abroad are still suffering from this Dum Diversas papal bull that was advanced by Pope Nicholas V on 18 June 1452. We're still suffering the effects of that. So that's why reparations do matter. And as we've seen, all the different categories of reparations must be accounted for. Next slide, please. These legacies remain among the primary barriers to the full enjoyment of human rights by racialized people. In other words, because we've been reduced to this level, we are not in our day-to-day lives being able to enjoy our full human rights. And reparations will restore us to the enjoyment of these human rights. And again, what I mentioned earlier on, that what happened in the past is inextricably linked to the present racial injustices that we face, the global inequality, and the human rights violations. Next slide, please. So today, we face these effects by the fact that everything that we see around us in the world today is a result of Euro-American slavery and colonialism. That is what gathered the resources, the labor to establish and build the Western world by and large. The borders that we see in Africa that divide us are a result of this enterprise. The fact that we're speaking English language and some of our brothers are speaking French, others are speaking Portuguese, even Spanish, are a result of this. And the fact that our knowledge systems are not even considered to be knowledge systems at all. Today, we only have one kind of knowledge system that is being advanced as the only knowledge system in the world, and that is the European knowledge system. So, these effects are still being felt today. Next slide, please. So here I want us to look at some examples of reparations cases, so as not to make it seem as if, Black people are the only ones who are demanding reparations. So the first is 1862. President Abraham Lincoln signed the District of Columbia Compensated Emancipation Act into law, which offered reparations to former slave owners. I think that should be taken very seriously. After the Emancipation Proclamation, the government of the United States paid reparations to the former slave owners and nothing to the formerly enslaved. That's the first one I want to talk about. Next, please.
And Doc, before we go on, I see Daddy Bosco in the back. Please, Daddy B, if you can activate your camera so we can add you to the discourse. Thank you.
In 1865, General William Sherman received a proposal for reparations from 20 Black leaders. And Sherman promised them, and this is a very prominent part of the I would say the handed down information in the African American community about the 40 acres and a mule. So Sherman promised all the people who had recently come out of slavery and had fought on his side during the Civil War, that everybody was going to get 40 acres of land and a mule to, start their life. So Sherman, issued this order, but then President Andrew Johnson came back and reversed it. So the people that enslaved people, or the formerly enslaved people, were not able to receive the 40 acres and a mule as promised. Next one, please. In 1952, West Germany agreed to pay 845 million in reparations to Holocaust survivors, and that amount was increased to over 1 billion in subsequent agreements in 1988, 1999, and recently as 2018. Next slide, please. The United States in 1989 passed the Civil Liberties Act, and this allowed for the acknowledgement and the provisions of reparations to Japanese Americans who were wrongfully imprisoned in the internment camps of World War II. The law authorized an official apology and also compensation of 20,000 US dollars to each surviving individual who was interred. Next slide, please. Also, Representative John Conyers in 1989 introduced the H.R. 40, calling for the establishment of a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. Next case, please. Now, here I want to draw attention to the case of the Ova Herero and the Nama people of Namibia. This case has been recognized as the first genocide of the 20th century, where Germany sought to make extinct the Nama and the Ova Herero peoples. German colonial troops systematically executed and starved thousands of Ova Herero and Nama men, women, and children between 1904 and 1908. It is estimated that 80% of the Ova Herero and 50% of the Nama populations were killed during this period. Now, this case is ongoing. The Namibian brothers and sisters are seeking for reparations. Germany made some overtures, but those were token overtures, and they were rejected by our brothers and sisters in Namibia. So this case is still ongoing. Next slide, please. In 2015, the Obama administration awarded 12 million US dollars for assistance to Holocaust survivors. Here, I want to point out that you have to take note of the fact that Obama was the president of the United States. The Holocaust happened in Germany, yet Obama paid reparations to the survivors of the Holocaust. And I want you to keep this in mind, because we're going to juxtapose that with the victims of slavery who have to this day not even been acknowledged in terms of the human rights violations that occurred. Next slide, please. So the question that I'm posing here is, will African people receive reparations, right? Is America going to come forward within the next day or two, or within even the next year or 5 years, and say that, we are, first of all, acknowledging that we perpetrated this heinous crime? I mean, let me add to America, Europe, because we just saw what happened, and decide to provide forms of restitution to African people. I don't expect that to be happening now or anytime soon. And this is apparent in the fact that even the vote that just occurred, 3 countries voted against, right? And those 3 countries were the United States, Israel, and Argentina. All of the countries of Western Europe abstained. Even places like Luxembourg, Lithuania, Norway. Thank you for putting that up, Emperor. All of them abstained, right? So, in other words, they do not have any intention to even acknowledge the fact that this is the gravest crime against humanity. The apology has not been given. And as you can see, the countries who abstained, most of them, and the countries who were against, most of them are all those who perpetrated these crimes on a very high level. Next slide, please. So, before I, step aside, I just wanted to give a little background to the agitation that has brought this about in terms of the recognition and in terms of the fact that Ghana took the lead to advance this cause. So prior to 2009, in the United States, there were two main organizations. They're still around. That is the INCOBRA and also NBAF. The INCOBRA being the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, and NBAF being National Black United Front. They were agitating for reparations. They reached out to the United Nations, and the United Nations informed them that they don't deal with organizations. They can only deal with countries. So if they can get any countries who can represent them, for instance, let's say if the United States was willing to take their case up at the United Nations, then they can deal with the United States as a member state of the United Nations. So, of course, NBAF and INCOBRA knew that the United States government was not going to be interested in this case. So they reached out to the Caribbean countries. And when they reached out to the Caribbean countries, I think one of them, I don't remember which one it was, decided to take it up and went to the United Nations, but the United Nations also reached out to them and said, the population that is representing this case is too small and we cannot deal with it. So that precipitated the formation of CARICOM, where the Caribbean countries found it necessary to have a unifying body that represented the entire Caribbean domain. Now, as these agitations were going on, there was a world conference that was held in Durban in 2011. And at this world conference, demand for reparations were again at the forefront. Many successes were achieved at this conference. Unfortunately, the day that they came back to announce to the world the steps that had been achieved in South Africa at this conference, that was the same day that 9/11 occurred. So from Chicago, you had some great people like, the late Dr. Conrad Worrell, who was part of the people leading this effort. And they were getting ready to make the announcements. However, 9/11 happened and they had to shut down the press conference and all that kind of stuff. So many years after that, these agitations have still been going on. And that has resulted in a country such as Ghana taking it up to use its power, its influence, its connections around the world to bring this to the United Nations. And this time, it seems that they did their homework well and have been able to have majority, I think 123 of the states, member states of the United Nations, vote in favor of slavery being the greatest crime against humanity. So I want to say that, yes, as I mentioned earlier on, the expectation is not for reparations to be responded to by these powers immediately, but as Mahama said in his speech, this should not be forgotten. And putting this story, putting this request in the public domain at the United Nations will keep the agitation going. But it is important for us as Africans also, and when I say Africans, I mean Africa continental and the diaspora, to recognize that we have to work to empower ourselves, because it is when we are empowered that we can demand reparations. Now, let's take, for instance, a country such as China. If China was not powerful, there is no way that anything that they do would even be considered by the Western world. Just like they were brave enough to vote against this resolution. However, if we work hard to bring about the empowerment of Africa and by extension its diaspora, that power is what will enable us to demand that these things happen. So yes, it is good that this is being talked about, being discussed, being engaged, but we should not raise our hopes so high into thinking that they're going to offer an apology or pay compensation, restore our human rights, anytime soon. I think that they are still very interested in carrying out the mandate of Pope Nicholas V, as we have seen in recent times. Minerals that belong to African lands are being taken wantonly, sometimes for nothing at all. And in cases of places like Ghana, they say 6%, and then you should be happy with 6%. Just imagine that recently, less than a month ago, actually, I think about 3 weeks ago, Ghana decided that its gold resources in particular, they were going to put their earnings on a sliding scale. So that meant that if the price of gold went up, then the percentage of what they should earn should automatically also go up. So they said the sliding scale is going to be between 6% and 12%. Do you know that the United States, China, Canada, Australia, all these countries were putting pressure on the Ghana government not to, advance the idea of the sliding scale, and that it should be just a standard 6% rate that Ghana earns. Just imagine 6%. The thing is in your land, but you only get 6%, and they want you to be happy with that 6%, right? So what we need to focus on, from my humble point of view, is whereas these conversations are good to be had, the focus should be on us wresting ourselves from colonialism, because colonialism never left. And one thing that sometimes we forget when we see these discussions in newspapers and stuff is we talk about the resources being our resources, and it's true, it is our resources. However, the colonial powers also see the resources in our land as their resources, right? And that was what colonialism was about, using our labor and our mineral resources for the benefit of the Western world. And that mentality has not changed. Even if you pay attention, when this US president came into power, one of the first things he did was to bring African countries to meet him in the White House and ask them, which of them is willing to, basically give up their resources for access, to be accessed by American companies. And we heard the Liberian president being, spoken about by Trump as speaking good English when he was responding to his questions. He didn't know that he could speak English that well, right? So this mentality still persists. This is the same mentality that Pope Nicholas advanced by saying that they should go into the world and take our kingdoms our principalities, everything that belongs to us for their profit. So I would like to pause here, and I thought it would be good to give some background to the discussion and then open the floor up. So give thanks for the opportunity.
Fantastic, Doc. Thank you very much. Now, before we proceed, there are a few videos that I would like us to go through because I think it will help steer the discussion. And also, as far as the groups, like the ones calling themselves the Foundational Black Americans are concerned, in as much as some of the statements that have come out associated with them sound very ignorant and all of that, we would still want to take a look because we don't want to minimize their concerns. If there is...
You say you're not an African.
Yeah. You
are indigenous. So why African thing you won't involve yourself for inside? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the whole premise of your existence is that you said your ancestors did not come from Africa. This is the premise. They're saying that they have no connection with the motherland, that they are indigenous to the United States. So if you are indigenous to the United States, and those African Americans who recognize their connection to Africa are benefiting from a resolution that has been brought forward by the president of Ghana, why are you protesting? What is your...
You've also heard some of them suggest that Africans sold their ancestors out.
Okay, Empire. I don't mean to cut you.
One second, please. Even for the lady that we had talking, right, to even suggest that you are standing on the bones of our ancestors when it's in reference to enslaved Africans, that is a tacit admission that they come from Africa, isn't it? Though
that's absolutely right. And I would hope that if you can find that video that by Obadele Kambon, that I was gonna play, because he gives such a excellent response, historical, factual response to all this kind of stuff. And so if after you play your videos and you can, please,
that's the way you can send it to me while we're still talking. I would make sure that we have it downloaded and play it. But let me we've heard what President Akufo-Addo suggested, right? Now, to me, that may have informed the idea that reparation is about money. I don't know. The way I heard it come out, I heard too much of a leaning towards payment of some money, right? Whereas now, when we hear the case as was presented by the current government, which has resulted in what we have now, it clearly stated that we were not necessarily looking for money, but all we're looking for was, first of all, the admission of the wrong done and a reordering of the world order, right, to favor Black people more than it is doing right now. Let's watch this video real quick, please, and when we come back, we'll continue. Unless, Doc, you have something quick to say before I play that video.
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So let me locate that video. 1, 2. Let's watch this video, please.
Consequences of the transatlantic slave trade has been the lack of opportunity, discrimination, the degradation of people of color. So we have said, let's have frameworks that will serve as endowment funds to support education, to support empowerment, to support skills training, capital for entrepreneurs, and all of that. And we have made clear that African leaders or Caribbean leaders are not looking for money. It goes against our conscience to seek to profit from this. We don't want any payments made to us directly. We are talking about costs to deal with the structural inequalities. And we are also talking about the return of artifacts to the continent. It's all in the resolution. There are thousands of artifacts from Egypt all the way to the Ashanti Kingdom in Ghana. Those artifacts should not be returned on piecemeal as and when those who are in custody of those artifacts are in a good mood. So we have outlined what must be done and to whom these redress should be addressed to. So again, it is totally wrong for a claim to be made that there is no clarity about who benefits from reparatory justice.
Okay. Doc, please take over back. And if you want to invite any of the other
yes, please.
participants.
Let's hear from Sister Sadia.
Give thanks, Brother Riro. So now we're going back to that question that was asked. Jah Beloved asked. I want us to really Ras Riro, please help us shed light on this concern, because there is a divide with continental Africans and Africans in the diaspora, African Americans too, as to the accusation that we sold them into slavery. And I don't see where the selling was done, and I don't see where the money or gain we made from selling. So this needs to be clarified so that we can move the conversation forward.
Absolutely. Give thanks. And that is, we're going to do that momentarily. Fireside.
Just a quick thought. I don't know if we're there yet, but yeah, a profound presentation, Prof. Wiros. Give thanks for that. Real solid. I'm just thinking about, I hope we can talk about this later. What Empress Sadia is talking about, I think is something that would help. But I was thinking that maybe when you said we shouldn't expect anything to happen, you know, like this in this moment, you know, as a result of this move. And we know that one thing leads to another. Everything will happen at once, right? I thought it was very profound for you to say that, you know, and I love how Jah Beloved is emphasizing, drawing attention to the fact that it's not about money, you know. And reparation can take so many different forms. Some of us are coming from the position where they took away the life of Africa. So reparation should mean we're taking away their life, their existence. Sounds kind of extreme, but what does it mean if we start to think about things along those lines? You know, because there cannot be any kind of repair if we're still trying to deal with this arrangement, you know. So one thing that hits me, that concerns me in this conversation also is that the way we're using their language, including their conceptual language, to address this problem. We're taking their definitions. Let's remember that the word reparations came into mass, global discourse as a result of the Jewish thing. There were other reparations that had happened, had been called different things, but when the thing was kind of like solidified, crystallized, like this is reparations, they were talking about the Jewish situation, that is the Jewish experience vis-a-vis the Nazis. And it actually reminds me of what happened with genocide when, you know, they had to compensate the Jews. They used Lemkin, who pushed the idea in the United Nations for them to come up with a genocide, what they call it, convention, was a Jew. And he was the one that was on that thing, like, yeah, we're going to have to make this thing an international sort of like a rule that you can't commit genocide. At first, he declined it very broadly, culturally and everything, right? And then when William Patterson and Du Bois and Paul Robeson then took it up, right, and brought child genocide to, can you please silence the audio? Yeah. Yeah, when Patterson and Du Bois and Paul Robeson brought We Charge Genocide to the world stage in terms of African Americans situation, what happened was Lemkin, who had been pushing for genocide, suddenly redesigned the whole concept and said it didn't apply to Black people. Well, we could say he was being disingenuous. He was lying. He was making up stuff. He removed the cultural aspects. He started talking about what the Jews experience was not what we experienced and all that. But I think the problem there is we're using his meanings. We're approaching a problem with someone has couched the word, a phrase, or some terminology, and we take it and we stuff our meaning into it. And so the person that's coined that term can say, this is not what it means. And we have a debate around it, right? What would we call it if we hadn't had those terms? That's what I'm interested in, right? What would we call genocide if we've never heard genocide? What do we want to say that exceeds that word? That's what I'm saying. What we're talking about may exceed this word reparation, So it makes sense when Prof says we shouldn't expect that to happen, because I mean, these people we know, like if you're saying the nations were built on this, why would all these Western European countries not support this? Because it was through this that they became who they are, right? The U.S., if you pull this from them, their prestige and everything collapses, So they can afford to fix the Jews thing because it doesn't affect their prestige, right? But as soon as they have to address this, the whole idea of the world has to change. So I think we have to move more in the direction of what are our meanings. I think when we started, I think it was Prof that said something along the lines of, Jeb Love said something that triggered a thought. Like, we're using your meanings that's colonialism still. True. When we take the meanings and say, yeah, this is it, and let's try to work this out. We have our own universe, conceptual universes, and we have to take them more seriously and come up with our own coinages and our own meanings. Otherwise they're going to do this. I'm not saying this is a useless move. Yes, it informs us, and it puts a thing on the map, all that. But maybe if we came in with what we meant, it would be another set of, circumstances that we have to deal with. So that's a little bit I've been thinking about as I'm listening to the reasoning.
Excellent point. I think couldn't have said it better. The conceptualization and the framework in which we situate our things must emanate from our own worldview, right? And that's a given, But in the meantime, that has not happened, and I think that we need to move from where it is right now towards what you just shared is very, very important. Give thanks. Empire. If you can bring up the video, I sent it to you.
Oh, okay. I'll check the video, but I think there are a few other brethren and sisters that be them or data if they can share a thought quickly while I look for the video to load.
Yes.
Jason, if you can activate your camera, please, so we can add you to the discussion. Jason, I see you in the green room. Please activate your camera. Thank you.
Daddy B, give thanks for your presence. If you would like to share some thoughts, please. Daddy B, I don't think they hear me. All right, who else is on there? Let's see. Ras Kofi, you want to share some thoughts, please?
Rastafari, give thanks, greetings
to
everyone here. Yeah, learning a lot. One question I've been wanting to ask about the question of repatriation and reparation is, some of us, we have spent some time at the Bobo camp, and we know that the Bobo, a Rastafari mansion, is mostly, always about repatriation. Every Sabbath or every prayer, every meeting, the question of repatriation is revisited. So one thing Bobo makes it clear is that repatriation before reparations. And looking at what Ghana's government is spearheading, it looks like on a national level, or let's say on a continental level, I do not see African leaders position really on repatriation. We have seen Ghana government facilitate citizenship for diasporan Africans who are interested. But first, the question of the Bobo Shanti cry, repatriation before reparation, how do ones think about it? And also, is it necessary that African governments must contribute or spearhead the repatriation agenda, since the Rastafari movement has mostly been about resettling formerly enslaved Africans who want to return home? Rastafari have been very interested. Even RCG, one of their mission is to champion repatriation. So, one, is it necessary that repatriation must precede reparation? And also, what can African governments do to aid repatriation if the Bobo cry is a relevant cry? I give thanks.
Give thanks. Would anybody like to respond to that, please? Okay. I will try to respond to that. So yes, I personally, I agree with repatriation with reparation. And there are several reasons for that. I think that in this context, when we talk about repatriation, we're also looking at it not just in terms of the movement of people from the diaspora back to Africa, which is an important component, but we also want to look at the empowerment of Africa, right? As a form of repatriation in its own self, where we are rejecting the colonialism and embracing our original ways of living. Now, in terms of why that is important, I think that as I said earlier on, let's say Babylon right now decides that I'm going to apologize and I'm going to give every African at home and abroad $1,000 US. And then our leaders at home and abroad decide that, oh, that's okay, we are going to accept that. That will also mean that once you have accepted that, then case closed. Whereas if you are in a position of power, you're able to demand exactly what you want. And I think that right now the power dynamics in the world is not putting us in the top ranks, which means that we can be dictated to, especially since most of our leaders are in their pockets anyway. So that's why I think that reparation and repatriation go hand in hand. But I think that the empowerment, is very important for the actual justice, because the key word there is justice. If you come and give $1,000 for lives that have been lost, people who have been maimed, people whose languages have been taken away, people who colonial mentality has been steeped in their lives. As Sister Sadia was saying that, it looks like that the trauma has made us like some kind of imbeciles, where we're sitting in a place and the place dirty self. We know if we take broom.
We've already helped hundreds secure citizenship, housing, relocation,
and even clean up. So I think that absolutely repatriation with reparation. Now, your question in terms of should the African governments take initiative? First of all, Kwame Nkrumah and His Imperial Majesty and others champion the cause of African unity, which is very important. I mean, sometimes we try to pretend as if that is impossible goal to reach. But there are countries in the world who have united and are functioning. Like in America, every state is technically a country unto its own, right? In Canada, they have two different countries, two different kinds of countries. Let me put it that way. One, Quebec is a totally like speaking French, and the rest of the Canada, dealing with English. But they've united and have been working, So we have to also emphasize that African unity is not impossible. In fact, it's very, very achievable. And I think that absolutely the motherland needs to take an initiative to reach out to her children, abroad, because the people in Brazil, the black people in Brazil, the people in Jamaica, the people in Haiti, the people in Curacao, the people in Martinique, U.S. Virgin Islands, United States, the African American, all these are children of Africa. So yes, to respond to your question, I do think that in terms of repatriation, Africa needs to take some initiative, but that is also going to be an outcome of a united Africa as opposed to the borders that we live within, the borders that were created by the Berlin Conference, which in itself is an acceptance of colonialism. If we are, still claiming these borders as if, it be we create them. So those are my thoughts, on that. Give thanks.
All right. Before we proceed, Doc, the video is ready. It can be played whenever you are ready. And
So,
if you can please activate your camera, and Akila, if you can also please activate your camera so we can add you to the this discussion. But the video is ready, Doc. Whenever you need me to play it, please indicate.
Yes, sir. Can you cue it to like 4 minutes and start from 4 minutes and go all the way to maybe like 15 minutes and 30 seconds?
Okay, let's see if we can do that. Please take over while I try to cue the video. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, give thanks for the reasoning. I'm totally enjoying the reasoning and learning from it as well. I want to give opportunity if anyone wants to chip in about any of the things that have been said or respond to Raskofi's question as well. We can do that.
Daddy Bosco, please activate your camera so we can add you. Akila, please activate your camera so we can add you. And Jason is already on the show, on the. I don't think he has said anything yet, Doc. Jason to chime in, please.
Jason, can you please share some thoughts?
Yeah, greetings, kings and queens, and my elders, and I greet each and everyone in the name of His Majesty, Rastafari. Yeah, I've been following the discussion, but I want to, before I go on, I want to share a friend's opinion about the repatriation speeches that our President Mahama actually gave out recently. From the friend is actually living in how do you call it, St. Lucia, and he's looking forward to actually return home. But I've been sharing some information about the citizenship that Ghana was granting to
what the
young
non-blacks
people,
try to do now is
and some of the requirements which was actually involved was a bit disturbing for them, because they felt like they are also part of us who were taken away not by their choice, but they were taken away by force, and it wasn't by their will that they were taken away. And if they really want to return home, it shouldn't be like they're being charged amount of money. They're being asked to actually prove a whole lot of
True.
um, so many, I would say,
Requirements.
requirements. Yeah, give thanks. So many requirements before you actually become a citizen of a place that you were taken from. And she was like, they have so many people there, man, woman, who are actually working so hard, but they don't really get enough to save to return home because it's a bit expensive. And these are, if we talk about, these are carpenters, these are masons, these are like architects who can also work with their hands. They do building, they do constructions, but they don't have that enormous amount of money to return home and be actually citizens of the nation that they were taken away from, and they willingly want to come back home. So in a point, this friend is like, uh, is the cry of the Bobo Shanti for repatriation and reparation, and they have to champion it, but where is the people to do the work? It's like nobody is focused on doing that work. So it's kind of difficult for them to return home and bring their expertise on board. Yet still they really want to return home. But when they look at the cost, even the cost alone to fly home is a problem for them, for most of them, I would say. But yeah, they have that will, and they are ready to come and actually serve the nation. So in a bit like that, I don't know what we as the council down here we can also do to help or aid this agenda, because it's all part of the repatriation and the reparative justice that we are discussing and working towards. So I just want to bring it on board to also for the family to also take it into consideration about such people and see how best we can also help as a council, how we can also aid them with the return and set them up with lands and what resources that will be necessary to build. And yeah, I think with such considerations, we can actually plan something for our brothers out there. So I think that is the little I want to contribute for now.
Give thanks.
Give thanks to the
Very
spirit.
well said. Yes, very well said. Would anybody want to respond to that? Okay. Yeah. I totally agree with what you just put forward. I think that we should not be, Ghana as a country or any African country for that matter should not be charging um, her sons and daughters to return to Africa. And I think that we have to remember that, more often than not, these people in government are not necessarily conscious of the history. They may just look at it from a tourism perspective. So I think that's where Rastafari can come in. How do we use our voices? Because these people, in government and stuff, we can talk to them and let them know that it is not morally right for you to charge, I believe, 25,000 Ghana cedis, and then go and prove through DNA that you have connections to Ghana. That is ridiculous. I mean, what does that mean? So for instance, if you go do the DNA and the DNA, first of all, DNA is a farce. I just want to put that out there. It's yeah, we'll come to that conversation. But
Radio culture.
But if you go to the DNA and it shows that your people come from Congo, does that mean that you cannot repatriate to Ghana? That to me is very absurd. I don't even know whose idea that was. And what about if the DNA shows that you are from Ivory Coast, and you know that the people of Ivory Coast, the people of Ghana, the people of Nigeria, according to their own DNA system, have 99.99% the exact same DNA. So if that is the case, if you go do the DNA way, they say you're from Ivory Coast, then once you apply to Ghana to come and repatriate to Ghana, that means Ghana government is going to reject you. That is ridiculous. So I think that this is where we can seek to get into the ears of some of these people sitting at the helm of affairs and let them know that this is not the right way to go about it, right? Yeah, so that's we do have the power to do this thing, right? And that's what we give thanks. Sadia.
Yes, Rasmiru. So, if you remember from the start of the conversation, that's where I was coming from when I said Rastaman was championing the conversation about repatriation, reparation, long, 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 long.
True.
So yes, and Rastaman is conscious. We are educated and informed about our historical past. Due to the work that His Majesty Nkrumah, Bob Marley, and all our predecessors have done, we are well informed. But the leaders, like you rightfully said, they are not aware. It's not coming from a Pan-African or the conscious side of things. It's probably from the tourist side. We don't know, but it seems like we have to be involved in the conversation.
Absolutely.
And when I say we, yeah, Rastaman, I think we shouldn't be afraid to join the conversation. We should, as an organization, we should, like the foreign minister, for instance, we should engage him. We should find a way that we can go and sit down with him and have this conversation. We should, like I said, go to the radio stations, go to the TV stations, write in the newspapers, let our voices be heard, because this is something we champion. And then now, all of a sudden, it become a political issue, and then the conversation is geared towards somewhere totally not from where it should be. So that's my take.
Thanks.
Okay, before we proceed, Doc, the video is ready, I think.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Minutes and 14 seconds, I think. I hope that works for you.
Say that again.
The video is queued to 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead. Play it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
They try to say, oh, sold, y'all were sold and blah, blah, blah. Every person was kidnapped. The question is, were you kidnapped by the non-blacks or were you kidnapped by blacks, right? Now, how did you even get to be kidnapped by blacks in the first place? There's a good book by Professor Nafafe that goes into Lorenzo da Silva Mendoza and his court case that he lodged at the Vatican. This is a traditional ruler. He lodged a court case to abolish enslavement altogether. As many of y'all want to say, oh, continentals are against that. No, here is a quote-unquote continental person who is going to lodge a case at the Vatican for them to abolish enslavement altogether. What he got out of it was that they brought back some who had been kidnapped from Brazil and brought them back to Luanda and what's now modern-day Angola. But he wasn't fighting for just them. He was fighting for the end of enslavement altogether. Now, when you look at this, each and every person, as I mentioned, was kidnapped starting in 1441. That's when you had Antal Gonzalez, who you can read a quote from him where he said, wouldn't it be a good idea that rather than get such a petty merchandise, and he was referring to Prince Henry the Navigator, who had sent him out for oil and seal skins and stuff like that. He said, wouldn't it be good to bring the first captives before the face of our prince? I'm telling you exactly what he said. From there, everything that you know as transatlantic enslavement came from that decision. Just a random whimsical thought of this non-black person in 1441 has impacted the lives of hundreds of millions of black people up to this day, right? After Antal Gonzalez in 1441, and for those who are keeping track, that's before 1619, you had 1444, you had Lancelot de Freitas, you had, all of these others who came immediately after in order to augment that, where the first one they took a black man and a black woman. After that, they took, 44 additional ones. After that, it took several hundred. That's how it got started, was literally non-black people kidnapping black people from the continent. Now, later on, and this is what's documented in the book that I just mentioned about Mendoza and the court case that he brought, was that up until that time, all they were doing was kidnapping black people. They would use pretense. They would say, oh, because you didn't fulfill this obligation, we're kidnapping your people. You had traditional rulers who themselves were kidnapped. But he came up with a decree. And the decree said that all of the things that you used to bring in tribute, now you can find all the way back to classical Kemet people who are bringing tribute. They'll bring fruits, they'll bring vegetables, they'll bring, cattle, they'll bring whatever. Anyone who is, the ruler over your ruler, you bring them a tribute, usually yearly at a harvest festival. What this guy said is that we're no longer taking tribute in palm oil because there are some places that don't have palm. He gives a rationale. He says we're no longer taking it in chickens because by the time they get to where we are on the coast, most of those chickens have died. So he lists and basically why they shouldn't take tributes of all the things that had up to that point been brought as tribute. He said from this day forward, you have to bring tribute in human beings, right? So how you got from a place where they're only kidnapping people to now they're turning black people against other black people by saying, if you don't kidnap your neighbor, we're kidnapping you. And that's literally exactly what they did. The case that I mentioned of those people who got brought back from Brazil was because he had kidnapped them under false pretenses of saying, oh, if you don't bring them back within whatever short time frame, 48 hours, 1,000 people, then we're kidnapping. It was a pretense because they know we got cannons, we got guns, and now we're kidnapping everyone because you couldn't fulfill my decree. We're kidnapping every single person from your society, and we're kidnapping you too. So the rulers themselves ended up on the ships going to Brazil. All of this is, historically documented. You can actually find this out. And again, this is Professor Nafafe's book that goes into all of this as well. So just saying all of that to say that when you're looking at the door of no return, how did you even get to that door of no return? It was through kidnapping each and every last person. Nobody volunteered. Every person was kidnapped. Now, after they were kidnapped, now it comes up, well, was there a transaction involved after the kidnapping? When did the all of those things are subsequent to the kidnapping happening. But that's what they were saying, is that you'll never be able to come back. And each and every last person who was in that boat, every last one wanted to go back and see their mother. They wanted to see their sister. They wanted to see their brother. They wanted to go home. If you read a book called Barracoon, there's Nana Cujo Lewis. And what he says is he just wants to go back and see his mama. He was kidnapped as a small child because those in Dahomey had kidnapped those who are Yoruba, because what they didn't realize is that the Berlin Conference is coming and they're colonizing everybody. You thought that was your trading partner. You thought that was your buddy. Guess what? All of y'all are getting mowed down by machine guns. All of y'all are getting blasted away by cannons because they see all of y'all are saying, whether you call yourself Dahomey, whether you call yourself Oyo, whether you call yourself Asante, they're killing everybody, right? They're taking everybody's land. You think you're different. They say, no, y'all are all the same. So he was getting kidnapped by those who are the puppets, right? So again, if you look at a marionneteer and a marionette, this is the type of puppet that has strings, right? You can get mad at the puppet, but really the ones who's pulling the strings, that's where the expression comes from, is the one who originated it in the first place back in 1444. And after that, you have the papal bull of Pope Nicholas, who said that all Christians are to reduce to perpetual slavery all of these black people, talking about the pagans, the Saracens, infidels, and so forth. He's talking about you as black people, and that's exactly what he's doing. So again, just to come back, the door of no return, it represents their idea that you should never, or you never ever will be able to return. In Benin, they'd have them walk around this uh, monument of forgetfulness and so forth, and then you go out, you're not supposed to remember where you came from, right? But when we come home, this is a slap in the face to the kidnappers, to the black kidnappers who were the puppets. And it's an especially bigger slap in the face to the non-black kidnappers who started the enslavement process in the first place. And anybody who wants to say, oh, it's all the same, whether it's black or non-black, well, I ask you, how many black shipping companies do you know during the entire 1441 all the way up to today? How many ships were owned by any black people? I'm waiting. How many plantations in Cuba, Hispaniola, right, Brazil, how many plantations were owned by black people? How many insurance companies, right? They talk about the Zong, fiasco. How many insurance companies were owned by black people? How many shipbuilding companies were owned by black people, right? The position then is the exact same position we're in now, is we provide raw materials, whether it's cocoa, whether it's gold. We're not in charge of any of it. We just give the raw materials and then they do as they see fit, because there's a power differential. And anybody who doesn't recognize there's a power differential is dishonest and they're lying. The power differential is that the reason why they're able to make sure that all you can do is raw cocoa is because if you don't, we're going to Kwame Nkrumah you. The way that they're able to make sure that all you get is the raw gold exported is if you don't, then they'll Thomas Sankara you. If you don't give them just the raw coltan and uranium and plutonium and whatever, bauxite, then they'll Patrice Lumumba you. That's the power differential. And anybody back then who fought against them ended up either on the ship or ended up dead. But even in the face of knowing that, you still had those who fought tooth and nail against them. You understand? So again, the door of no return, historically, it means that they're saying you'll never come back. And when you come back, you're slapping in the face the puppet and the puppeteer. You're slapping the marionette and the marionetteer. And those who want to do this broad stroke, they say, oh, all continental Africans sold all diasporans. Well, when I read Barracoon, Nana Kujo Lewis, his mother didn't sell him. His mother wanted him to come back, and he wanted to go back to his mother. It was those who were outside of his community who thought that they were something different. And lo and behold, aren't we doing the same thing now? Diasporans think they're different from continentals. Continentals think they're different from diasporans. What's really the fundamental difference between what got us into that situation back then and the situation we're in right now? We thought we were different when really our enemy said, all of y'all look the same to me. You understand? And they were willing to do and reduce to perpetual enslavement as the Pope taught them to do. Pope Nicholas taught them to do in the Papal Bull Dum Diversus and Romanus Pontifex. He literally said to reduce all of you to perpetual slavery. That was as groundbreaking of an idea as like going from yam phone, so-called, to an iPhone. I don't like the term yam phone because yam is good and delicious and helpful for you. But like, this is like, this hadn't even been something that not only you are perpetually enslaved, but your children's children forever into perpetuity are forever enslaved. That is the idea. That didn't come from the Asante Hene. That didn't come from the ruler of Dahomey. That didn't come from the Oni of Ife. That didn't come from any black person. The idea of the original enslavement that came from 1441 that I mentioned, Antonio Gonzalez, the Silva in Luanda, that idea as well, to say, how can we get them to do all of the heavy lifting? Because they're like, yo, we're tired. We're kidnapping everybody. How do we get them to do all the heavy lifting? We'll use the power differential that if you don't do it, we're kidnapping you. And that's exactly what they did. Even if you do it, we're kidnapping you too, right? And you found that in old Calabar versus New Calabar, where they said, oh, just come onto the ship. Don't worry, just come onto the ship. When they came onto the ship, they put everybody in leg irons. Those who thought that they were salesmen, those who thought that those were my trading partners, guess what? All of them ended up getting shipped away, and they had to write affidavits of this is, what happened to me, so forth and so on. This is how we got captured. They said we should come on board for a feast and drinks. As soon as we got there, they pulled out guns, and guess what? Those trading partners ended up right over on the other side of the Atlantic. So,
All right.
these are things to keep in mind. So you mentioned,
You can pause
I'm
here.
going to pause here. You're going to have to edit that, cuz you were talking about historical context and what else?
Empire. Empire.
Yes, Nana.
Yeah, you can pause here.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So give thanks. That was just to put some context, right? This whole idea of they and we, or we and them, is not based in any history. We have to remember, there's a saying that says that as long as I'm trying to paraphrase here, as long as the hunt tells the story of the hunt, the story of the hunt will glorify the hunter. So this narrative that has been given to us to divide and rule us, right? About we and them. Who provided that narrative? We have to ask ourselves, right? And reject that narrative, because as we heard, nobody told their mother or their sister or brother or anything. In fact, even the collaborators today, don't we have collaborators? We have Black people who collaborate with the Babylon system. When we look at other communities, even in the United States, when they were fighting the Civil War, some of the colonists were collaborating with the British. When we look at the Holocaust, some of the Jewish people were collaborating with the enemy. So it is not, you cannot blame, like if somebody comes to your neighborhood and sets up a factory to manufacture poison, and they hire 10 people to work in the factory to manufacture that poison. Are you going to blame those 10 people who have been hired to work in the factory as responsible for poisoning the community, or is it the person who set up the factory who should be responsible for that community? So the whole idea of we and them, or they sold us, is neither here or there. It's not based in historical fact. Is a conjecture by the Europeans and Americans to divide us. So give thanks. I would like to open the floor to any comments, insights, and observations. Give thanks.
All right, Prof. So while we wait for Daddy B, I think that Daddy B should be ready to speak by now. Daddy B, are you ready to share some wisdom with us, Daddy B? Or you muted yourself again. Or wait, don't touch the mute button. Let me unmute you from here, please. Just stay put. I'll unmute you.
Cool.
1 2 1 2. What is going on? 1 second. Just can't unmute your guests because they chose to mute themselves. So please unmute Daddy B. I think it's asking us to unmute from your end. There you go.
All right. Give thanks. So like I said, I give thanks for this insightful conversation. Learned a lot. What I like to say is that the other day I was telling some brethren that what President Mahama has done is what Rastafari has been doing for years now, talking about repatriation and reparations. Ghana's taking the issue of reparations to the UN, and they're dealing with the case of repatriation. There are a few bottlenecks in the system, but the process continues. As we speak, Razazwad is our representative from the RCG on a body that is interfacing with the Diaspora Affairs Office. And I believe that some of the concerns that have been raised here about charging virgin ancestry fees and things like that are issues that I strongly believe will be addressed in due course. Um, what I like to also say is that on our part, we need to maintain the advocacy, keep talking about the issues, using various media at our disposal. And I'm confident that the day will soon come when anybody who comes from the diaspora will be granted a certain automatic, what you call it, reprieve, or a certain automatic accommodation that allows them to integrate in an orderly manner. So I'll pause here, and if necessary, I'll come again. Give thanks. Bless the love. Yes, Prof. Please, you can take up.
Okay, thank you. I think Doc is trying to reconnect. While he does that, let me play another video for us to take a look at. And this video, I want us to observe carefully, is to the fact that Ghana didn't just wake up and say we're going to go and as a country go and seek for this, right? It's a situation where Ghana represented the rest of Africa, and apart from that, Ghana did consult with the rest of the African diaspora. And that's what I want us to focus on. This is not something that was just like, oh, okay, we're just going to go there and do so. There was apparently extensive dialogue between the officials of Ghana and the diaspora. We have Doc back, but before Doc comes in again, let's quickly watch this video and come back. And I have a couple more videos I want us to watch. I want us to watch the United States response to the proposal, the United Kingdom's response to the proposal, and shockingly, Israel, which has forced the whole world never to forget atrocities. Israel, which has made the words Holocaust a thing, are now voting against the proposal. That's quite shocking. But before we get to all that, let me play this video. Let's see what was done to engage the diaspora before approaching the United Nations. Let's watch this video.
Congratulations on the overwhelming victory in the General Assembly. I know you're busy, so I'll make it quick. What message does this resolution, this draft that has now been adopted, send to other people outside Africa right now that are fighting for reparatory justice?
This resolution sends a very clear message that the international community would no longer tolerate impunity, that the international community stands for justice, that the international community and our multilateral system we have erected, no matter how long it takes, the day of reckoning will come. And so all of us as leaders should be mindful of our actions and our policies, that once we violate the rights of others, once we engage in impunity, in acts of injustice, the day of reckoning will come. To me, that is a very, very profound message that the UN is sending to the world today. Let me take the last one.
Stefan Caravaggio in New York. Did you have, in this process, did you have any contact with the African American leaders here in this country, especially in Congress? Did you have any contact?
Yes, we did. We did. I personally met with the Congressional Black Caucus. I met with the NAACP. I met with the NAN of which is led by Reverend Al Sharpton, and I am delighted to note that following our meetings, they all publicly endorsed this draft resolution, the Congressional Black Caucus actually wrote to the U.S. ambassador here to make sure that he votes in favor of this resolution. I'm sure he's really in trouble with the Congressional Black Caucus, 62 congressmen who urged him to vote positively, and he's defied them. I don't want to be in his shoes today. There was also a statement of endorsement yesterday from NAACP, and I also note that a lot of black members of parliament, particularly in the House of Commons, the MP Belle Ribeiro, she has also done a phenomenal job in mobilizing the House of Commons in support of this resolution. So we've had a very broad-based coalition, and we thank them very much for the support, the pressure that they all brought to bear. That is what has culminated in this victory. So it's a collective victory, and collectively we must all take credit for this victory.
Okay, Doc, please take over.
Give thanks. Empire, any responses, please? And Empire, I beg, check my message in the chat.
Will do. Thank you.
Radio culture.
Any responses, please go on while I check what Doc is trying to get me to do. Thank you.
I want to hear from you.
Why? A leopard cannot change his spots, neither an Ethiopian his skin color. But why would you even want to ever? Blackness is in my nature. Blackness is my culture. No need to look too hard to realize that my blackness is a salient feature. Born in Africa, continental soldier. Repatriation is a must. I story is the ultimate scripture. 400 years ago, I was the same man once. Kunta Kinti ancestor. Chromancy warrior, descendant of Nzinga, Dayabingi, Hana Santua. I was the same one them kicked from Elmina, same one who chased the crazy ballet there. Ramadwa, Chaka Zulu once again, your shackles on the chain, the washing of the brain. I still rise, I rise. It's in my DNA.
All right. So yes, Doc has to get on the road very soon, and actually we should be wrapping this up very soon as well. So thank you very much, Doc. Whenever you need to go, please prompt us, and we will have you on your way. We don't want you to get caught up in the heavy Chicago traffic back home. But before you go, though, there's one thing I was hoping that you could quickly touch on for me, which is the United States response and the United Kingdom's response. If I could please quickly play that. And still, if you have to leave in the middle of all of that, please let us know. We'll take care of the rest. But quickly, before you go, let's hear what the United States has to say about it.
Vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, that's actually the end. Let's replay that.
We regret that the United States must once again remind this body that the United Nations exists to maintain international peace and security. It was not founded to advance narrow, specific interests and agendas, to establish niche international days, or to create new costly meeting and reporting mandates. This resolution does all three. The United States has defined long-standing objectives to the framing of reparatory justice and the duty of reparation for historical wrongs. While we acknowledge the horrors of the past, we do not accept this resolution's assertion that historical facts from the 15th through 19th century constitute violations of jus cogens, as the term is understood in contemporary international law. The United States also does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred. In addition to its obvious legal problems, this resolution is also unclear as to who the recipients of reparatory justice would be. The drafters and supporters of this resolution seem to believe it is them. The United States strongly objects to the cynical usage of historical wrongs as a leverage point in an attempt to reallocate modern resources to people and nations who are distantly related to the historical victims. As stated at the outset of these negotiations, the United States also strongly objects to the resolution's attempt to rank crimes against humanity in any type of hierarchy. The assertion that some crimes against humanity are less severe than others objectively diminishes the suffering of countless victims and survivors of other atrocities throughout history. This is not a competition. This attempted ranking is also simply incorrect as a matter of law. The United States would also like to express disappointment in the arbitrary historical perspective of the text. Trafficking in African slaves began long before the 15th century and sadly continued even after the 19th. These dates were clearly selected for political reasons rather than historical accuracy. All trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans deserve to be condemned, not merely the political expedient. Also, there are some fake news articles suggesting that the sponsors of this resolution called into question President Trump's support of the Black community. We reject any such suggestions. Indeed, President Trump has done more for Black Americans than any other president and enjoyed historic support from the Black community in the 2024 election. He is working tirelessly to deliver for them and make our country greater than ever. Finally, we must express our deep disappointment regarding the process that led to this text. Throughout drafting, the United States and other delegations offer constructive contributions aimed at aligning the text with established international legal frameworks. These contributions were ignored. For these reasons, the United States will vote no on this resolution. Thank you.
Doc, quickly, before you get on the highway.
You know,
and we have the UK one coming also. So, but this
yeah, the whole thing smacks of huge hypocrisy, right? You saw that, you know, when we started, we showed cases of reparations. For instance, the one that, you know, had been accorded Japanese Americans, right? So by him sitting down and saying that there is no legal and historical precedent is a huge hypocrisy. And then secondly, we know that they know what this whole resolution means in terms of building upon it towards some form of reparations. And so what they're basically doing is they're trying to recuse themselves from anything that in the future will demand that they pay reparations towards the victims of their actions. So yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think that it was unexpected that they voted no, right? But now they're justifying why they voted no. And the justification that he's providing is making it seem as if nobody has even been paid reparations before, and that this is an anomaly, which is it was happening. But the historical record does not support that. So again, it's a hypocritical statement that he made. And you know, when slavery happened, it was ethically and morally wrong. It may not have been illegal, but there are many things that have happened in the past that were not illegal then, that are legal that are illegal today, that were legal then, that are illegal today, that have been drawn upon in cases related to contemporary time. So, you know, to me, I think that they know exactly what they're doing. They can foresee the future and see that they will have to be a major sponsor of any reparations that are due African people, and they're trying to recuse themselves, at this moment before it grows into what it's going to grow into in the future.
Let's take the UK response as well, and then the floor will be open for everybody else to contribute before we wrap up. And in the meantime, if Doc gets on the road, hopefully he'll get to where he can connect with us back before we wrap up. But for now, let's check the UK's response to the proposal.
In this resolution and welcomes the opportunity to set out its position. We have repeatedly recognised the abhorrent nature of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, which inflicted untold harm and misery on millions of people over many decades. Its horrors were profound, and its legacy continues to leave deep scars today. The UK also believes that only by acknowledging and discussing collectively the most painful elements of the history that we share with other nations, including the transatlantic slave trade, can we come together in a spirit of solidarity and mutual respect to respond to the challenges that we all face today. The UK remains committed to that goal. That is why we engaged constructively throughout the negotiations on this resolution in the hope of reaching a consensual-based text. However, despite our efforts, our concerns have not been taken on board. The UK continues to disagree with fundamental propositions of the text and therefore, regrettably, could not vote in favour of it. Firstly, the UK is firmly of the view that we must not create a hierarchy of historical atrocities. Doing so simplifies the complexity and vast scale of suffering endured in different contexts. It risks diminishing the experiences of communities whose trauma and suffering was felt just as strongly. No single set of atrocities should be regarded as more or less significant than another. We should approach all historical injustices with the same seriousness, empathy, and respect to ensure that no one group is made to feel that their suffering is being overshadowed or treated as secondary. Furthermore, it's essential and integral to the rule of law that the formation and evolution of international law is governed by clear and well-defined principles. The principles of intertemporality and non-retroactivity are long-standing tenets of international law. They are essential to ensuring legal stability. According to the intertemporal rule, the applicable law is the law of the relevant time. International courts and tribunals have routinely upheld these principles. There is equally no duty to provide reparation for historical acts that were not, at the time those acts were committed, violations of international law. These principles cannot be circumvented by recourse to the concept of continuing harms. The UK welcomes that states have developed international law such that today's slavery and the slave trade are rightly prohibited by treaties and under customary international law, and enslavement is now recognised as a constituent element of a crime against humanity. Nonetheless, it's important to acknowledge with deep regret that the prohibitions on slavery, the slave trade, and what are now considered crimes against humanity had not yet been established in international law at the time of the transatlantic slave trade. None of the recognised sources of international law, as set out in Article 38 of the Statute of the International Court of Justice, identify a prohibition on slavery and the slave trade until the 20th century. The United Kingdom appreciates that Ghana, on behalf of the African Union, consistently stressed that this resolution was not to be read as a legal document. This was restated by the drafters at every informal consultation. In this context, the UK and others offered specific language to move the text away from legal to political discourse, while still reflecting the sheer gravity and horror of the acts. Member States also suggested the text should be considered by the Sixth Committee. Again, this was met with the response that this was a political declaration. The United Kingdom is keen to underscore this point on the AU's intention, while we continue to regret the failure to accept language that would have put the matter beyond doubt. I thank you.
Okay. Doc, quickly.
Yes, I think it is important to point out that the language that the UK and the US used is like almost identical. They're saying like, it's like what somebody just fax the same speech to the other way they just read it. But the point they're making is that, they are against hierarchy. But the fact of the matter is, can they point to any group of people in the world whose suffering has surpassed the suffering that Africans have gone through? Right? I mean, it's 123 countries of the world disagree with the two of them. So that should tell you something. Those who voted in favor, 123, they do not think that there is no legal basis for this resolution. The only 3 countries who think so are the ones identified: the United States, United Kingdom, and Israel. The 120, and Argentina, and then United Kingdom is abstention, right? But those who voted in favor, 123, do think that there is a legal basis for that, and I think that speaks volumes. Give thanks.
I think so too. I definitely think so. And again, I'm surprised that the United Kingdom didn't flat out vote against it, but it's pretending to still have some conscience by abstaining.
Absolutely. And then they went to hire that Badenoch, or the sad story that she is, to come and say that the United Kingdom should actually have voted against and not abstained, right? But that is a matter for another day. So yes, Sister Sadi, I can send you the slideshow. No problem. Yes, sir. So give thanks to the item. This has been wonderful. Give thanks for your insights. Give thanks for everything. I'm going to try to hop on once I get in the car, but I have to be on the road for some other engagement. So give thanks for the vibes. And I'm going to hand over the moderation to the most able moderator.
That plenty of the day.
Respect, yes, sir.
All the time. All the time. Isha.
All right, Isha.
Okay. So while and I think we actually should be wrapping up very soon, but I think that we should all, Sister Sadia, since you are here already, let's start with you. What's your response to the United Kingdom's response and the United States response? And also generally how the other countries voted.
Okay. And I think the other countries voted like they have a conscience. The United States and Britain, the UK, obviously we know they don't have a conscience and they are hypocritical and they are acting like, this is not a big deal, because I heard the United States man saying that this is not a competition. There are other crimes against humanity and all of those things. Well, they can pretend that slavery against Africans is not as gruesome as it is, or whatever they're trying to say. I don't know. What I want to say is that they will do what they have to do, because obviously they don't want to pay reparations. They don't want to acknowledge their wrongdoing because they know it will cost them a lot. However, the emphasis even shouldn't be about them. The emphasis should be about us, right? How we can unite, be on the same one front, and agitate for what we want. If united we stand, divided we fall. We know how that is. So let us work and clean our house so that we can be strong. Raswiro said what? Let's work towards our empowerment. Once we're empowered, we can stand on the negotiation table and be able to win. That's my take.
Fantastic take. That is. Thank you very much. And before the next contributor comes in, I want us to take a quick look at how the countries voted, right? 52 abstention. As far as I'm concerned, the abstention is a vote. As far as I'm concerned, it's a yes vote in hiding. This is a yes vote that for whatever reasons, these people cannot come out and say yes, right? So as far as I'm concerned, every country except these three countries have admitted that slavery is the gravest, the very gravest of all crimes against humanity, right? And then we're seeing 123 countries voting in favor of that. I am mildly surprised and also very appreciative of the fact that countries like China and Russia voted for this resolution, right? And then I'm also happy that Africa showed pedigree here, because I was very nervous that some African country was going to show up and act like a poodle or something like that. But we didn't see that happen as far as this particular vote goes, and I want to show appreciation for that. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see if we can all chime in a little bit before we wrap up. Raskofi, you want to come in next for us? And you can take it on anything that we've discussed for today, please.
Yes, Ras, I appreciate. I am quite impressed with some of the responses coming from Prof. Cambon and Prof. Wiro, especially when he highlights some of the concerns being raised by people who are opposed to the motion that if you say Africans sold Africans into slavery, where are the plantations that Africans have? Where are the
insurance companies and the ships?
The insurance companies, the ships and all that. So you realize it looks like our education has made us argue for even those who seek to destroy us.
Yes.
To the extent if reparative justice is for Africans and Africans who suffered slavery, why should fellow Africans rise in opposition when even some European countries have even voted, or let's say about 123 countries have voted to accept slavery as the gravest crime? So I think conversations like this should be, if it can be part of our educational curricula, so that we appreciate what slavery has done. Why I heard the call from Prof. Wiro also saying that it is when we recognize ourselves as one people, like Black people, whether at home or abroad. But here, tribalism, nationalism, and sometimes continents, we are divided among those lines. So forging ahead in unity, educating Africans both at home and abroad about the historical facts in slavery, I think will go a long way for our people to appreciate, and even when repatriation should happen, for us to really embrace the fact that we were one people divided by people who didn't want the best for us, and so we should forge ahead for unity. So there's the letter that I wanted to add. I give thanks for the opportunity, my Lord.
Nice one. Give enough thanks, Raskofi. Jason, let's have you come in next. But before you do that, Jason, quick one, please. So this issue, and I'm very happy that it came from somebody like Prof. Kambok, because he, as we all know, is a descendant of the part of us that was taken away, right? So it's not like even it's what some would call a continental African making that case, but it is such a strong case. And I personally like to draw scenarios, right? I was invited to speak at an event many years ago in New York, and I drew that scenario of sitting together. You know, we remember how scatter, for instance, they happened for Ghana, right? Let's say we're all sitting down in a room, we share some, meditation and everything, and then some people come and they scatter everything, and people try to run away, and I'm able to scale over the wall and flee and escape, right? But my brother wasn't able to. It's a very similar scenario like that. And I want to also take this chance to condemn somebody like my erudite brother Manasseh Azuri Awini. Azuri, right? Such a brilliant journalist, such a great mind, right? But this shows that it's possible for great minds to even get things wrong sometimes, which is why discussions like this is very important. Manasseh, especially from the part of the country that he comes from, the part of Ghana that he comes from, should know a little more than some of us, because the relics of slavery are there for him to see. The camps, right? The slave markets and all of that. You know the history of Babatu and all of these people. So to skip all of that and suggest that the entire African continent owes some sort of apology is very, 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 very unlearned coming from somebody like that. And especially at the time when this discussion is going on. To come up with that, it's very pedestrian, if you ask me, right? Why? Because, Manasseh, you know that some people were taking, of course, without their will, okay? You know that there are mothers who suffered. So let me draw one scenario more for you, Manasseh. Imagine a mother whose children go out to play and never come back. You're saying that the mother on the continent has to apologize to who? This is what we have to wrap our minds around. Manasseh, to come with that perspective is to skip over the pain of all the Africans that resisted and were not able to be shipped away. Some of us ran away. Some of us escaped. Some of us just did not come in contact with these people. Let's face it. And I'm saying that to say that we, as a people, as so-called continental Africans, owe some type of apology to somebody is to skip over the pain of the mother whose child was taken away, who went out to play and never came back. Again, Professor Kamong has also stated clearly that some people went on the ships as collaborators and never came back. Prof, thank you very much for playing that video, because this is a point I've been trying to make for years. Some people went on the ship thinking these were friendly people they were going to strike deals with, only to be shackled to. So now if such a person comes here in the West, their descendants are, do we owe them an apology? Let's think about all these things. You see, the scenarios are important. And that's why me, for instance, I think like we can, if we want, skip the scenarios and just come together as a people to say, let's, instead of we versus them, instead of continental Africans versus African, so-called African Americans or diasporan Africans, right? The fight should not be between us. The fight should be us united against a common enemy, an enemy that continues to suggest that enslaving us was okay. That, to me, is where our focus should be. But we have to reiterate that for every one slave that was taken from the continent of Africa, 3 more died. 1 died in the process, resisting. 1 died throughout the passage to the West and was tossed overboard into the sea. Let's never forget that. And another died on the plantations because they fought and wanted to get back. And then we have those that stayed and resisted and prevailed. So for every one surviving so-called slave in the diaspora, 3 Africans had to be killed. And of course, never forget the story of those of us who fought and could not be overcome and therefore remained on the continent. It's important. Thank you very much. I think that 7 Fireside, you want to chime in real quick, and then Daddy Bosco, and then a couple others before we wrap it up. 7, please. Seven, are you with us? Okay, I think he may have disconnected for a short while. Daddy B, you want to give us some final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yes, I give thanks for this wonderful reasoning. What's happening is very historic, and I think it's a privilege to be alive in these historic times. What we can do is we can ensure that we contribute our bit, get the general Ghanaian population sensitized to the facts of the matter and why these people have a right, as much right as we living here, to be here with us. Give thanks.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Daddy B. Okay, Jason, final thoughts before we... Jason, you did there? Oh, I don't know if Jason his camera is frozen. But Empress Adi, I know you already spoke, but somehow I want... Oh, okay. Nana Benin Mensah just joined us, just as we're about to wrap it up. Nana Benin, Wabayade, you have to say something. Please, bless us with some thoughts.
Yes, sir. Repatriation and reparation, to me, it seems like we should fight repatriation before reparation, because it seems we are still in mental slavery.
Nana, please speak up a little bit for us, please, if you can, please.
I'm saying like we need to fight repatriation before reparation, because we are still in mental slavery. So we need to let our people come home, then we rebuild Africa, and with massive, we can fight for reparation. Because still in slavery, we are still helping the economy. So we have to come back home for repatriation to fulfill itself. Then we can fight reparation too. This is my little contribution.
Question, Nana, do you think we can do the two at the same time? As some say, we can walk and chew gum, right? Two things can happen at the same time. Do you think we can do repatriation and reparation hand in hand? Do you think that should be possible?
It can be possible. Fighting the two at the same time. That's why I'm saying we need to fight for repatriation first. Then we can continue with the reparation as being massive in our own land.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Sadia, you will bless us with the last word before we wrap it up.
Yeah, beloved, this was a great topic for discussion, and I think we should do more and more of it. And please share the audio recording so we can spread it around, because we need the education. My closing remarks: this is a book by Kwesi Pratt, Reparations. It's a very good book, and I really didn't know exactly how this slavery started, but he started with the papal bull, and I was so elated that Professor Wiro also started from the same course. So that's very enlightening. I've learned so much. Give thanks for this program.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the recommendation. That's a book I would definitely like to read. I hope they have a digital version. Otherwise, I'll definitely physically order that book to read. Kwesi Pratt is one of my very favorite, I call him thinkers. You know, he is a great thought leader in our community. Thank you very much for sharing that recommendation. Anybody else who would like to share a last word before we go? I think Empress Sadia has wrapped it up for us, and everybody has chimed in. Prof is on his way home, and I had to step in to moderate the end of the show for him. I thank you all for joining today's show. Before we go, one last thought I would like to share is this. The feelings of the foundational Black Americans and any other such Black people cannot be minimized. Let's make that clear. We don't ascribe to anything they're saying. We want to keep the family together. If you take a banana from Africa and you bring it to Norway, it's still a banana. If you take a chimpanzee from Asia and you bring it to Africa, it's still a chimpanzee. So there's no way we can all of a sudden have two Africas. That's nothing like that. However, we should also acknowledge that that thing called slavery that happened was not child's play. So for certain people who have suffered indignity firsthand, for certain people who have suffered isolation firsthand, because for that child that I referred to who went out to play and never came back, remember, they would have to deal without their mother. That leaves a scar. It's a generational scar that will be passed down. So there's genuine anger in communities which we have to deal with. We cannot make a side note of that. We cannot footnote that. We cannot pretend there is no anger or feelings there to be dealt with. We have to acknowledge these feelings, but approach them from a perspective of love, from a perspective of understanding, from a perspective of the higher ground, where we are now having a discussion like this to explain that it's not every continental African, if at all, who may have, assisted in selling some of our brothers and sisters off and things like that. But we have to open channels for discourse among us so that these questions will be discussed as a family. Because one of the things that the enemy wants to do is to pitch us against each other. And this is a classic case for doing that, right? Now we're looking at it like, oh, who deserves reparations? It's us in the US, not you in Africa, right? And then they'll come in and dip in the cracks. So we should be very aware that it's not about who deserves reparations. All of us deserve reparations, home and abroad. And we are asking for a reordering of the world order so that our cocoa prices are not determined by somebody sitting in Switzerland. That's the kind of thing we are asking for. And while we are at that table, foundational Black Americans, please, you are also welcome to sit at the table to demand what you want. What you want can be seen to without you being in direct contravention of what Africans want. Because we did suffer too. Our knowledge systems were messed up completely. Our artifacts were taken away. In systems where you could take one piece of clay and that represented the entire history of a people, but now you have to put that in encyclopedias for people to read. All that we need to be compensated for. And it's not about money. Let's make that clear. As I think we have done in this conversation, no amount of money can ever wipe away the indignity that was meted out to us. But at the very least, let's all come with a united voice to call for a realignment of the world order that still keeps us at the base of the human hierarchy. Thank you very much, all of us, for joining us today. My name is Kwesi Eson Bako, and it was my total pleasure to assist with today's production. Enjoy the rest of your day, all of you, and thank you very much for making it. We hope to see you another time for another enjoying discussion. Bye for now. Thank you.